Well, hello, and welcome to that thing we like to call Curless Mania, where we talk all things pop, rock, and prog. Before we do anything more, I'd like to welcome back my friend from the Contrarians, Mr. Martin Popoff. How are you, Martin?
Yeah, doing okay, Tom. Pretty busy, but thanks for having me. Very cool. It's a new the first test of the new office, so excellent.
Hey, I'm
I was
honored.
it was a little touch and go, but everything hooked up properly. Everything was good, so all
Hey,
ready.
I'm honored to be showing the first of the new location. So there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
But yes, no, great to have you. Thank you for making some time to talk about the Who with me. We're here to talk about the Who. We're going to talk about some Who records that don't get talked about a lot, actually. We're going to talk about the Kenny Jones era Who, which is Face Dances from
Yep.
1981. I don't know if I can get that in focus. I might. Here we go. Face Dances. Look at all those different paintings of the band.
With the poster, right?
That's right, the poster. That's right. I don't think I have the poster anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, check it out.
that looks like.
I think
Yeah.
I had that on my wall in Chatham, New Jersey back in the day.
Oh yeah. She ain't folding out properly here. Anyways, yeah, there we go.
There it is. There it
Yep.
is. Check it out. It's a cool
Yeah.
poster.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and then we're gonna pit that against the other Kenny Jones record from Warner Brothers, It's Hard from 1982.
Yep.
So it's these are records that are I would say there's a lot of, and a little bit of like Tommy reference there, kind of an updated Tommy where he's playing a video game instead of pinball. I don't know, maybe that's why I always took it. Maybe that's not the intent, but that kind of seemed like it to
I
me.
think it is the intent.
Is
Yep.
it? Okay.
Yep.
There we go. So yeah, so I've been kind of changing it up a little bit, and I'm going to start out by saying, Martin, when was the first time you remember hearing anything off of Face Dances, or what was your experience with when did you buy the album when it came out? Did you see the video? What was your first exposure?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in the '70s as basically any album that I had to get into had to be a heavy album. We were just like mathematically, it had to be heavy metal of some sort, right? So at this point, I was loosening up a little my standards. I was getting into prog and stuff. I was drumming a lot as well, and I kind of bought into it. I liked the first single, "You Better You Bet," so that was cool, and that kind of got me into it and like the album cover, the back cover, with the paints like that, pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I did end up getting this as a new release, and I vaguely just remember it as one of the first handful, maybe under 10 albums I ever had that wasn't particularly by a hard rock band.
Right, right. I remember you said that we talked about Peter Gabriel in the last time you were on this channel, and you remember you saying the same thing, that Peter
Yeah,
Gabriel was also kind of like a kind of light for your taste at the time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So Peter Gabriel, yes.
Hmm.
The Cure, most any kind of post punk that was 78, 79 post punk like Magazine. I remember that creepy Public Image album,
Yeah.
Public Image Limited. But yeah, there weren't that many. It basically had to be heavy metal. But I think everybody was pretty excited by that first single.
Yes, yes. And now I remember that. I do remember there's some palpable excitement around You Better You Bet, because it is
Yeah,
a great song. It's a great single. I
yeah,
feel today, still today, when I listen back to these records, when I listened back to these records for this episode, I was like, "Oh yeah, You Better You Bet." It still gets me. I love that song. I still love it.
yeah.
I still think it was a great single, great lead off track. So what is your take? Let's jump into we'll jump into Face Dances. So Face Dances
Okay.
is their ninth studio record. It was released March 1981 on Warner Brothers Records. It was produced by Bill Szymczyk of Hotel California fame, and he did some Joe Walsh records as well. I think that originally Pete was kind of close to Joe Walsh. I think that's kind of how that connection happened.
Okay.
And then the singles were, as we mentioned, You Better You Bet was the first single. And the other single off this record was Don't Let Go the Coat, which I don't remember hearing that much, not as
Oh,
much as as You Better You Bet.
yeah.
You Better You Bet was all over the radio. I remember that. It hit number 4 in the US. I mean, that's a good showing, and it number 2 in the UK. So it did well.
Yeah.
Um, it did well. So what's your general take on Face Dances?
Well, okay. I mean, let's start with the drumming. I find Kenny to be I never really sort of complained about Kenny. He was fine in there. To me, he's like a Keith Moon light. He's like a pop version of Keith Moon. He's a little bit more reined in, and these songs are a little poppier. They're not as gnarly. Um, and there's a very behaved arrangement and production ethic to the thing. I think Bill, I mean, he doesn't make very good sounding records, I don't think.
No.
And I don't think this is a particularly good sounding record. It's kind of humorlessly mid-rangey. It's just kind of there. It's not bad or anything like that. But yeah, there's some funny things about Kenny where he just, like I say, he sounds like almost like a new wave version of Keith Moon. And on You Better You Bet, you get the snare and the alternating between hitting the snare and then the tom. There's some marching things on here. There's some the fills are again like a behaved Keith Moon. It's almost like he's trying to do that yet have his own personality in there. So I was fine with all of that. As I go through it, I do love You Better You Bet. One thing that kind of bothers me about this record is Roger sings everything except for one track, which is John. And I don't like John's voice. I don't think his voice matches who he is. It's just so weird hearing that voice come out of him.
Yeah.
But he's a good singer, though. He's obviously very solid with, hitting the notes and stuff. He's an effortless singer.
Yeah.
But his voice doesn't really match him, and I don't like his songs. I don't like his songs on either of these albums, right? They're just kind of like gnarly and menacing and kind of mean and trying to be heavy, but there's nowhere, their brains are not wired to be heavy at all. So nothing ever sounds heavy. And Bill's production doesn't sound heavy at all either. But so I kind of wish Pete would have sang more on it. But I guess just going through them, I love Don't Let Go the Coat a lot. I love You Better You Bet.
Yep.
I think it's a great single. Cash Cash, don't really like it. The Quiet One, I definitely don't like. I don't like that stilted sort of shuffle beat to it. Did You Steal My Money is okay. It's a little bit experimental, little kind of back and forth. It has a little bit of the spirit of the old Who in it. How Can You Do It Alone? It's kind of okay with that weird pump, octave jumping sort of doom.
Yeah. It's
You
so
know, kind of
unlike the
thing.
Who. It's so un-Who.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool though. Daily Records, I really, really like. I like the poppy melodic stuff on this record, right? You is heavy. I don't like it. It's almost metal, written by John, but sung by Roger. And then Another Tricky Day, I think, is the most Who-like song on it, and it might be my fourth favorite song on it. I think it does sound like the Who because everybody's doing something different. There's a bass riff, and there's Pete just texturalizing as usual. And then in the pre-chorus, Kenny's just hitting the tom instead of the snare and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to me, the interesting thing about this is it's almost like a four-way battle with Empty Glass and All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes, and those two albums excel way beyond this, right? To me, it just feels like Pete's best. I would rather hear Pete sing than Roger. I just like his voice better, anyways. And this whole record is sung by Roger, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think he gets a great sound on his voice either. I don't know. It's just again very humorless and mid-rangey. So yeah, it's funny. I keep thinking I like this record more than I do, but when I actually go play it, I like about half of it a fair bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna echo a lot of sentiments. I think that after Keith Moon died, Pete was probably wondering, okay, how can I modernize the Who? How can I bring the Who into the 80s? How can we change the Who? He brought in Kenny Jones, as you mentioned, and Rabbit Bundrick on keyboards, I believe his name. Rabbit's his nickname. I can't remember his actual name, but he was
I think it's
apparently
John.
John.
I
Yes,
think
yes,
so.
that's
Yeah.
yes. There you go. He apparently a genius keyboard player. But anyway, um, he wanted to change the sound, but he wasn't quite sure what to do. And what I find interesting is that, to your point, you listen to Empty Glass and Chinese Eyes, and it's like he is on his solo stuff. He is doing that, and he's singing it and owning it, and it feels more real and legit for some
Yeah.
reason. And then when you
Yeah.
listen to this record, to your point, Roger's trying to make it his own, which I get, but it's not quite working on a lot of the songs. Like it's almost like Pete's going this more arty direction, and
Yeah.
Roger's trying to continue the screaming, stadium rock,
The other thing crazy, Tom, is that look at how much lyrics there is on this, right? There is a lot of singing Roger has to do. And of course, it's all Pete, right?
Yeah.
There is a lot of lyrics on this album.
There's a lot. There's a
Yeah.
lot, and you're right. He's got a lot to sing, and I agree with you. There's not much Pete on here. I mean, he does with backing vocals, but you don't hear him doing lead vocals. And you're right. I do miss that. I like when he sings at least one or two songs lead. Um, and to me, I do think there's some highlights. To me, the highlights are Better You Bet. Love that. Love Don't Let Go of the Coat. Same here. Cash Cash is pretty good. Quiet One. I agree with you. The Entwistle songs, he's trying hard to be rocking and like, let's rock. And it's like, okay, but it doesn't jive with what Pete's doing. So it just sounds out of place a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, Did You Steal My Money is okay. I really, I love Daily Records. Like you mentioned, I love Daily Record. I think that's a great song. That's excellent song. I love Another Tricky Day. So those two songs on the second side are just both killer. I think whenever I listen to Another Tricky Day, I think, like you said, it sounds like the Who, and everybody is. It's a great. You made an awesome point about how it's a tapestry, and it just fits perfectly. And when they're doing the whole back and forth vocal thing too, the whole time, and it just you hear Pete
Yeah.
a lot on that song, and so I love that. I think that's a great track. Love it.
Mhm.
Love it.
Cool. Yeah.
And I love This Is No Social Crisis, it's just a tricky day. Like, I love the lyric too, because there's a lot of that where people just think, oh my God, the world's coming apart. It's like, no, you're just having a bad day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that lyric. I just think it's great.
Yeah. One other thing to point out is so we get Empty Glass in April of 80, then we get Face Dances in March 81, and then we get Chinese Eyes in June 82, and then It's Hard in September 82. So yeah, just very prolific through this period, Pete is.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy amount of writing going on for Pete.
Yeah.
It's like insane. I mean, but the thing is, I'm going to get to this on It's Hard. You can feel the well starting to get like he's starting to scrape a little bit the bottom, I think, by the
Mhm.
time It's Hard comes out.
Yeah.
Because I think that both I think you agree. I love Chinese Eyes and I love Empty Glass. I think those are really solid albums. I don't really. There's a couple of like little misfires, but generally I love those two albums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they're masterpieces to me. They're way, way ahead of these. I'd almost give both of them a 10 out of 10, or at least a 9 on Empty Glass and a 10 on Chinese Eyes, because I think it's a masterpiece. And then
yeah.
and then I'm down to about a 6 on this one. So
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's about half there, and I think It's Hard feels the same way. Not to give it away. Let's jump into It's Hard. So let's it's their 10th
all right.
it's their 10th studio album, released in September 1982 on Warner Brothers again. Apparently Mo Austin gave them a huge amount of money to reform the Who, because I think Pete wasn't sure if the Who was going to continue, and Mo Austin said, "I'll give you 30 million bucks or something like that to do the Who." And he's like, oh, "Okay." Produced by Glenn Johns, and apparently at his home studio at the time. Singles were Athena, Eminence Front, and It's Hard, the title track. This is a couple little tidbits. This is the last LP to feature John Entwistle, and the last LP to feature Kenny Jones. Um, Critics were very polarized on this when it came out. I think some felt it was great, some felt it was not good at all. That was very polarized. They launched a farewell tour in 1982. Their first farewell was launched in the wake of this record. I think it was kind of the plan to do a new record and tour.
Mhm.
But Pete, I think Pete was exhausted by this point. As you said earlier, Pete was writing so much and doing so much. I think he was completely exhausted, and he told Bill Kerbersley, their manager, like, I need a break. I can't do this. I got to stop or something. And Bill Kerbersley said, okay, and he billed the tour as a farewell tour. So,
Yeah.
so it sold a lot of tickets. um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway, what do you remember about this record coming out? What do you
Well, I don't remember much. I do remember getting it as a new release. I love the title of it. It's Hard. What a cool, simple title that you just normally don't expect. I thought that was a really cool title. And again, even more lyrics. I mean, that's one side. And
It's
then that's
small
the other
font.
side.
Small font. Yeah.
That literally might be the most lyrics I've ever seen on an album. On a single album like that, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, so Roger has a lot of Pete to get across on this album. So first of all, Glyn Johns, I think he records it exactly the same way Bill Simzik or whatever, however you pronounce it is. It's the same kind of sound to me. I don't
Not
hear
that
any difference
not
whatsoever.
that different. No, it's not.
No, yeah, it's still mid-rangey, kind of high strung, kind of like operating well in that mid-range, in that high mid-range. I think the drums are up there as well, fairly bright and snappy kind of thing. Yeah, and it does remind me a little bit of that comparison between, say, Eat 'Em and Smile and Skyscraper, or Discipline and Beat, where the second time around of the same thing, people are a little less enthused about the whole thing. But to me, it's basically about as good as the previous one, as Face Dances. So just to go through it, Athena, I like it quite a bit. I think it's pretty cool. I like the sort of Who strumminess of it. So I think it's got some neat tension to it. It's Your Turn, I don't like. Dull, pedestrian, again, written by John. Cooks County is kind of interesting in the same way that Did You Steal My Money is this sort of stilted beat, and it's got that, people are starving, say it again. Yeah, it's novel. It's not, I guess not. Yeah, novel's the word, I suppose.
Different for them, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. Love It's Hard to Death. I just love that it's melodic and easy to listen to. It sounds like kind of like warm Louie Louie chords kind of thing. I think it's great. I like the lyrics. Dangerous, don't like it at all. Again, kind of got this pedestrian menacing feel to it, where I kind of felt this way about Alex Lifeson at the end of Rush, that when they tried to write heavy songs, they just didn't come across with a lot of personality.
Oh,
and I just feel when the Who tries to write heavy songs, they don't have a lot of personality, right?
Yeah,
especially not into them,
especially in this time, for sure.
Yeah, Eminence Front, I think, is far and away the best song out of both of these albums. I just love it to death. It's an absolute masterpiece. 81 million plays on Spotify. The next biggest on this album is Athena at 4.7, so 81 to 4.7. I've Known No War. I've always liked that song. I think that's a really cool song, and it's got like a good Who stomp to it as well. It's majestic. It's very English sounding. One Life's Enough is pretty cool. Good ballad. One at a Time, don't like, again. John Entwistle writes it. John Entwistle sings it. Why Did I Fall for That? It's okay, not great. Melodic, very Keith Moon on the drumming. A lot of that in it, right? And in a mellow song, right? So that's what Keith would do. Keith would play, a fairly lengthy and look at me simple fill, but in a mellow song, right? A Man Is a Man, not crazy about it. And Cry If You Want, again, innovative. That marching beat, that pulsating kind of beat to it. It's rocking and it's innovative. So yeah, the innovative ones, well, Eminence Front is totally innovative, but Cry If You Want and Cooks County, and then back to the old album, Another Tricky Day and Did You Steal My Money. I always kind of put those in a little bit of a group as the Who trying to do something interesting rhythmically. So when I add it all up, I'm kind of in about the same zone. It's kind of a 6 out of 10 for me. The songs I love on it, I totally love, and that would be I've Known No War, Eminence Front, and pretty much It's Hard. And I quite like Athena as well. So again, I really, really like half the album, and then the other half is like a mix of okay and John Entwistle, everything he writes. Not a fan.
You are obviously not an Entwistle fan. You are not a fan of those. No. Every time an Entwistle song comes up, nope, thumbs down.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. Exactly, that's fun. Yeah. But I kind of agree with you though. He just doesn't. It's like there's not something that's not quite fitting. It's like one of these is not like the other.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay. Athena, love Athena. I just love, there's so much personality in that song. I love She's a Bomb, just a girl. And they got the Pete vocal going on. I love it. It's great.
Tom, that kind of reminds me of the Tube. She's a Beauty a little bit,
Yeah.
That kind of sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Athena's great opening track. I think that was on the radio quite a bit back when it came out.
Yep.
It's Your Turn. Like you said, pretty pedestrian. I don't really like it much. Cooks County is pretty cool because it's different. You know, it's hard. Like you said, love It's Hard. I think that's a great title track. Love it. And it's even better live. I mean, some of these songs, I had a tape, I had a cassette of the Toronto show that was like one of the last concerts they did as this lineup in Toronto, and it was broadcast on the radio, and I taped it on a cassette, and I used to listen to it over and over and over again. And they do these It's Hard songs, and they sound so much better live too. It's like,
Yeah,
why didn't
that
they
makes
just
sense.
why didn't they
Yeah.
record this band like on stage? Like, don't like just record, just put them on stage and record it like professionally. I
Hmm.
don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Both of them have pretty dull productions. You know, the other cool thing about It's Hard is, you know, it's got that, it's very, 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 very hard. You know, when they do that kind of like regal pageantress British stuff, it sounds really good. Daily Records has got the same kind of thing, right?
yeah,
Just that pomp rock, pomp and circus pants idea, right?
absolutely.
And that's what sounds great about It's Hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's very, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. And so yeah, Eminence Front, couldn't agree. I love Eminence Front. Love it, love it. It's just such a groove. It's a great groove. Love it to death. And I love the, you know, I remember thinking like I used to think it was living is fun. I didn't know what it was. When I first heard it, I thought it was living is fun. You know, I was like, what? It seems like such a trite lyric, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, but I've Known No War is the sleeper track on this album. I totally forgot about this song. I put it on and I'm like, oh my God, this is one of the best songs on this record. Like it's got that joined together thing, that like you said, that strident joined together vibe. Um
Louis chords again, right? For the chorus kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and actually, this is one where Roger sings histrionically. This is his sort of histrionic vocal works on this track.
Yeah.
Um, one like, but then this for me, side two kind of falls apart. I mean, One Life's Enough, eh. One at a Time, nah. Why did I fall for that? Eh. Like I just there's like this whole middle part where I'm like, eh. Man is a Man. I'm like, nah, not really. I don't love it. And then, but then like Cry If You Want, I love. So it's like I love I've Known No War and Cry If You Want are great. And then the middle, it's kind of like, it kind of falls apart a little bit. It's a little soft in the middle. But really enjoy the first side quite a bit. And then I Don't Know War, Cry If You Want. So I'm with you. It's kind of like, I'm agreeing with a lot of your saying. It's like kind of like a 6 out of 10 record or five
It's
or,
funny, Tom. It just came into my head, but Cry If You Want's got that down, down, da, 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 and it reminds me a little bit of Pete Townsend Communicate. Communicate.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's very similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that Marshall. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's actually a very cool track. That's another one that live sounds amazing to me. But
You know,
you're right.
another neat thing about these records is that I've always liked is that they are essentially the same color palette, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They're kind of similar, you know, with the yellows and the greens and the blues. I mean, it's a complicated palette, but these album covers always kind of lined up for me pretty closely because I think the colors are kind of the same.
yeah. And I always wondered if this was like this album was released close to Christmas. Was this like a Christmas
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, or a reggae thing, right?
Yeah, reggae.
Yeah,
Exactly. I don't
yeah.
know. I don't get it. But anyway, I think it's supposed to be like the video game color. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, no, I do think it's funny. I listened to a Pete Townsend. I wanted to tell you, Martin, before I forget. I listened to a Pete Townsend thing. It was like an Amazon, I don't know, songs and stories or something, and it was called Somebody Saved Me, and it was Pete Townsend. It was almost like a storyteller's that was recorded like
Mhm.
professionally, and it's like he tells all this. He talks about this era, and
Wow.
it's really cool because he doesn't talk about it that much. And he sings some of the songs. He sings some of the solo stuff and some of the Who stuff. And he
Mhm.
said something to the effect of when he listened back to these records, he said, "I did my job. I did write good songs." He said they weren't recorded well or they weren't presented well, but he said, "I think I did my job writing wise." That was his take on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, boy. I know it's sacrilege, but I just would have loved to hear Pete sing every single song, and then a different maybe arrangement, like more
Yeah.
acoustic guitar and drums. You know, gnarly bass, acoustic guitar, drums, Pete singing all these songs. That's what I would like to hear. Maybe someone with the AI can pick up and do that for us.
Well, it feels like you said that the production on this record wasn't that much different. I do tend to I think that Glenn pulled the he pulled the mics a little bit away from the drums, a little bit more, but you know, because the Simzik does it like, you know, puts the mic right on every tom, you know, like
Okay.
and like the Eagles Don Henley style, which is not does not fit the Who at all. So I think
Yeah.
Glenn pulled it a little bit away, but still, I agree with you. It's still pretty mid rangey, and it's still it doesn't sound that much different. It's a little bit better, but not a lot better.
Mhm.
Um, and then what was I going to say? I had another point. Oh, I was going to say to you, this is another game that you could play. I have a lot of albums like this where you're like, man, if they had just like waited a year and like pooled these songs into one record, it could be like
Yeah.
really good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Take all the best from each, and you could be like a killer Hugh record,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, but you know, that game is always like a little bit of a fool's errand, I think it's called, right? I mean, where you know we would all have, although you and I have lined up on which songs are good off of this, but you know, you also have in the mix the whole thing with the two Pete solo albums, right? And then what do
Yeah,
you do? I mean,
yeah,
I don't know if I seem to remember, but maybe this is wrong, but maybe I saw somewhere along the line something about, was there something about how maybe Roger thought Pete was keeping the best songs for his solo albums or something? Was that around this
yeah.
time or some other time, or I don't know?
Yeah, somebody in the band said that. I don't know if it was Roger,
Yeah.
Kenny, or somebody said, "Oh, he's been storing away his good stuff for his solo career."
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Because besides Eminence Front and maybe You Better You Bet, maybe Athena, I mean, there are 7 or 8 songs easily that are as good or above those ones off of those two albums, right?
yeah, I mean, it's an argument that's hard to say it's not true because when
Yeah.
you listen to the solo records, you're like, there's
Yeah.
like not a bad, barely a bad moment on either of them.
Yeah, I love the production on both of them too, and they're so different from each other. One is pretty raw and guitar-y, and the other one is just pristine, right?
Yeah.
You know, I
Is it
mean,
Chris
Cowboy's
Thomas?
Eyes is so high fidelity, right?
Is it Chris Thomas producing?
Oh, I can't remember. I'm not sure.
I
I'm
think
not sure.
I want to say Chris Thomas was Empty Glass, but I can't
Yeah,
remember. I think so.
yeah,
But anyway, but you're right. I mean, listen to Rough Boys. It's like night and day with this album. I mean, or
yeah,
especially with this one, with this record.
yeah,
I mean, this is just way too neat and tidy.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Uh,
And I don't, you know, I think most times I can't point out where they are, but most times I hear the keyboards on either of these albums. I'm not impressed with the sounds they came up with either.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can tell that like they're trying on occasion. It's funny because you when you listen to these records, and when I was doing my homework for this episode and listening back, there are times you hear like, "Ooh, that sounds a little bit like something on Quadrophenia," or "That sounds a
mhm,
little bit like Who's Next," or "That sounds a little bit like something off Who Are You." Like there's
yeah,
little get little tastes of here and there of like other things that they've done,
yeah,
but it's not quite. It's almost like you almost get it,
mhm, yeah.
you know.
You know,
Um,
I got to tell you, I'm a massive Endless Wire fan too. I just love that record to death.
I had heard you love
I
that record.
know
Yeah.
it's so bizarre and breaks so many rules. Like
Yeah.
you can't figure out what's going on in that thing. Like recurring little bits and long bits and short bits, and Pete doing that Louis Armstrong voice, and I just love it.
Wow.
Yeah, the repeating synth stuff on it, the acoustic stuff on it, and I think Who is a pretty good record too. I like. In fact, I probably like both of those records more than both of these records, and I would say my favorite might be Who by Numbers.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just might be Who by Numbers. Quadrophenia, of course, I did. Where do I have it handy here? I mean, I did this right. This big. This is a sealed copy, but get the big Who book, Quadrophenia, right?
Oh, nice.
With the
Nice.
big. This is actually, you know, green cloth or army like cloth, and it's stamped there, and then yeah, it's all in a slipcase like that. So
Oh,
yeah, this whole book is just on Quadrophenia.
that's amazing. I didn't even know that existed. There you go.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
wow, that's amazing. Was it how long did that take to put together?
Oh,
To
it was a pretty big job.
wow.
Cool chapters on every single thing conceivably you can think about Quadrophenia on it. And but yeah, I don't even know if it's my favorite Who album. I think it's Who by Numbers. I used to say Face Dances actually. In fact, I think we have a Contrarians episode where I said that. But now, come to think of it, Face Dances would be yeah. I would probably go Who by Numbers, maybe even Endless Wire, and then Quadrophenia.
Wow, that's a
You know,
hot
and then it gets too old for me. I don't. The early stuff is just too rough, too Keith Mooney. You know.
right, right.
And I like Who Are You as well.
I was just going to ask you,
Yeah.
what do you think of Who Are You? That was my next question.
Yeah.
What do you think
Yeah,
of
it's
that?
pretty good. I remember it got a lot of bad reviews at the time. It was thought to be kind of thorny and weird kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, give me Empty Glass and Cowboy's Eyes any day, right?
Oh
And even
God.
White City as well. I think that's a pretty darn good album too.
I was gonna say that I throw White City in there too. I mean, White City is like White City Fighting and Give Blood and
Oh yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
Brilliant Blues, and there's a lot of great stuff on that record.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Man,
yeah,
those three songs you mentioned, I love more than everything off of these two, except for maybe Eminence Front, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you. It definitely feels. There's no doubt that it feels a little bit like Secondhand. Like it's almost like he's. There's no, you can. I don't want to make. I don't want to start something here, but it definitely feels a little bit like these songs are his second tier songs at the time. But it just goes to show how talented Pete Townsend is that these are his second tier, and there's
Yeah.
still a lot of good stuff on these records.
And just for the record, so on the second one, Roger sings every song except one for John and one for Pete. And so on the first album, it's Roger sings every song except for one for John.
Which one is Pete vocal on? It's hard. Which?
Eminence Front.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, The Who I mean, it's a band that I grew up on. I loved them for years. I used to be like just a Who diehard. I mean, I've got like everything I used to, it was one of those where I was like, I gotta have everything they've ever put out.
Mhm.
I used to buy the imports, Who's Missing and all this stuff. I used to buy all this stuff. And it's funny, I go back and like you said, I kind of listen to the early stuff on occasion. I'm like, it's pretty good. Some songs are good, but I don't have the same love for the early stuff as I used to.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
still
I
enjoy.
love the whole mod versus rockers thing too. And who I love more than the Who is the Jam. I mean, the
Yeah,
Jam is way more of a favorite band for me than the Who is. So the whole mod revival thing, but the mod revival thing was it was a fizzle. It was short lived. It was basically the Jam, the Quadrophenia movie, maybe the Chords, and then every other band I don't even like very much, right?
yeah.
Purple Hearts and all that. And who are the other ones? Yeah, the Chords is pretty cool actually, but the Jam
The Jam is great.
masterpieces. Just
Yeah.
love the Jam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Jam was like an updated version of old Who that was better almost. It was
Yeah.
crazy. That's maybe people get mad I said that, but
Yeah.
I just think there's some great Jam songs that sound like early Who. Um, but what is your take? Like last question. I mean, we're getting off topic, but it's
Mhm.
okay. It's all right. Because you mentioned Quadrophenia, and what did you think of the movie? Did you like the movie?
Yeah, I think they did a good job with the movie. And it was reviewed well. People still like the movie a lot. It has a few minor differences, but still, I think it's well put together. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think they did a good job with it. The ending's interesting and just all along the way. Um,
So does
there's the whole story in the book about it, but they spent a lot of money on it. It was well done. It was professionally put together.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I think it was good. So like I say, I mean, I think it was a big part of the mod revival. Literally, it was them and the Jam, and everything else was way down below that. So it was a Who movie, and it was the Jam, and
yeah,
that's it. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and then it's over, right?
Yeah, I think the movie's fantastic. I think it's really well done, and I love my friends and I used to debate all the time. It was the big debate on Quadrophenia was, did he kill himself or did he just
Yeah,
let his motorcycle go off the cliff?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
he let his motorcycle go off. One guy said he let his motorcycle go off the cliff because he was leaving that life behind or
yeah,
something. And then other
yeah,
people were like, no, he killed himself. No, that was it. He was it for him. I like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just funny. It's good that they leave it like hanging like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
You
It's
know.
so funny, Tom, here in Toronto on a couple occasions, just walking down, not even downtown, but just like out, a few miles out of town, just near where my office is, right? But I'm just walking down the street and there were like 7 or 8 mod gals on scooters just rolling down the road. It was hilarious. And then I
Wow.
saw some mod guys one day too. I've never been to a club and seen mods like on a mod night or anything like that. Like I've never seen a mod in a club, but twice I've seen them riding their scooters around. It's pretty cool.
That is cool, and it's such
Yeah.
an English phenomenon. It's like when you're American, you're like mod. What is mod? Like, what the hell is this? Like,
Yeah.
I never. It was like a movement in Britain, but when you're a kid from New Jersey, you're like, wow, what's mod? What is that? It's
Yeah.
intriguing because you're like, what is it?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and then the rockers were I mean, the rockers have the two kind of thing. They have the standard jean jacket or leather jacket and boots look, but then when they've got the crazy hair and the big what do they call them, brothel creepers shoes and stuff, wow, that is really wild looking, right? That rocker look, that is crazy stuff. There's
Yeah.
some neat books, photo books with all that in, but I hate their music, man. I hate rocker music. Just can't stand it. It's just old rock and roll or revival rock and
Yeah,
roll,
yeah.
right?
What is it like?
Yeah,
Like Jerry Lee Lewis or something? Yeah, like I don't.
yeah.
But
I remember living through all that with American Graffiti and Grease and Sha Na Na when they were
yeah,
famous at the time, that whole rock and roll revival. I did a podcast episode where I even railed about the times you'd get on live albums, you'd get the rock and roll medley on like a Sweet album or a Uriah Heep album. Queen would do it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Ridiculous, like the worst music Queen could possibly ever play. They did it quite often. They played a lot of that old rock and roll live, right?
Didn't they do like Jailhouse Rock or something?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
There's a few of them. Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like okay. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, I always wondered like why are these dudes? Why do they hate each other? And like why are they fighting? And it's really just a
yeah,
bunch of teenage people just getting their having a lot of energy and just I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know. Who knows?
yeah,
But I
yeah,
just it's I found it intriguing. I still find it intriguing. It's kind of a cool story.
yeah, yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Well,
but
wicked, man. This has been
yeah,
fun.
well,
Very cool.
yeah, yeah. So what last question I have to ask you, and this is
Mhm.
it. We'll just this is where the rubber hits the road is if you had to pick between, I mean, we kind of said they're kind of even, but if you had to pick one or the other, which one? I mean, it just depends on your mood, probably, right?
Yeah, let me see here.
It's kind of hard because they're kind of equal,
They're so equal.
you
Yeah.
know?
I think I might go with It's Hard
Yeah, yeah,
because of It's Hard, because of the prominence of Eminence Front. Cry If You Want's pretty darn good too. I've known No War is good too. So yeah, just by a hair, It's Hard.
yeah, yeah. I think the highlights on It's Hard, to your point, are higher than the highlights on this.
Yeah.
So I think this might possibly I believe me, I've been going back and forth. This could possibly be more consistent from a writing standpoint. However, the highs are higher on It's Hard. So I'm gonna go with It's Hard as well. Because and I
Yeah.
also like the production better. I like the Glenn John. It's a little bit better. It's not as great, like you said, but it's better
Mhm.
than the Bill Simzik thing.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I'm going with It's Hard as well. So that's two for It's Hard.
Nice.
Yeah. So let
Yeah.
us know. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. What's your take on it? People might say I could care less. Let's talk about who's next. I don't care about
Yeah.
these albums. So that's probably what I'm
Fair.
gonna get. um, but I just like to talk about records that don't get talked about as much. It's kind of fun to talk about them. So, and to Martin's point, it kind of weaves in with the whole Pete Townsend solo career, which I think is really cool. And maybe next time we'll talk about those records. but
Yeah.
um, Martin, thank you so much. Thanks for joining me
All
today.
right. Thank you, Tom. It was fun.
Yeah, appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I always have to say, hit like and subscribe if you like what you see. It helps the channel. Thank you very much. And we will see you next time on Curless Mania. Take care. Bye, everybody.